Okay, good evening and welcome everyone to this evening's webinar, an interfaith webinar ahead of Diwali next week. My name is Shanon Shah. I'm the director of Faith for the Climate, which it does what it says on the tin. It's an interfaith network registered in England and Wales that aims to encourage people of faith, any faith at all, to take more action on the climate crisis. And it really depends what sorts of actions and what sorts of issues they want to focus on. But we just encourage people to collaborate more with each other, and to just develop resources and actions that we can take together. Now, it's a very exciting time of the year. As you know, Diwali can fall at different times of the solar calendar during the year. But this year, it's a very special time this October. It's full of sacred events and commemorations. The month started with the end of the Jewish High Holy Days, Yom Kippur, the Jewish New Year, and we've just seen the end of Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles for the Jewish community. Earlier this month, we also celebrated the Feast of Saint Francis, which is very important in the ecumenical Christian calendar because it marks the end of the season of creation. So many people in our network were celebrating that as well. And at the end of the month, we will have Samhain, which is the Gaelic festival that marks the end of harvest in the global north. And it's also Black History Month. So, and Diwali is in October this year. So there's lots of things happening. So we decided to take this opportunity to just showcase the many wonderful things that are happening across our network because looking at climate and environment through the lens of faith allows us to see what global majority experiences are as well and what lessons we can learn from each other. And this is important in October because it's also kind of a bridging month between a lot of the conferences that happened in September internationally to do with climate and environment, leading up to COP30, which is the UN climate negotiations happening in Brazil this year, and they'll happen in November during Interfaith Week, no less. And I remember a couple of years ago, Diwali coincided with Interfaith Week and COP as well. And what we did that year was we had an interfaith film screening and a panel discussion in person at St. John's Church in Waterloo for Diwali and Interfaith Week and COP30. But this year we're having a webinar ahead of Diwali next week. But if you want to see what we're doing for Black History Month as well, I encourage you to visit the Faith for the Climate website, where we're doing exclusive interviews with Black, Indigenous, and people of color activists within our network on their experiences in connecting climate justice and racial justice work and their faith as well, their faith and spiritual motivations. So the first interviews have gone up this week. It's a two-part interview with Rahina Harilal, who's the founder of Buddhists Across Traditions. So every week there'll be a new interview in two parts. Um, Now, our strength is in our network. So I did have the idea to do something that would celebrate Diwali and Black History Month this year from a faith perspective. But the reason why things happen is because we have some amazing people that we work with. So I see on the call tonight, there's Avnish Takrar, who is the national coordinator of Hindu Climate Action. Who's a really close friend of the network. The Hindu Climate Action does wonderful work. So this webinar has been made possible also because of the hard work that Avnish has put in behind the scenes, and also Sister Maria Fondes from the Brahma Kumaris UK. So when I first thought of this was at the Mass Lobby of Parliament on the 9th of July. And, we just had a moment, and I said to Avnish at one point, and then Sister Maria at another point, I said, oh, what about if we had a webinar for Diwali? And they both jumped on it. And this is why tonight has happened. Um, so yes, so thank you. A very special thank you to the Brahma Kumaris and Hindu Climate Action for tonight happening. Now, tonight is also special because it's a wonderful opportunity for me to hand over to our host for today. But before I do that, let me just share with you the schedule for tonight also, so you know what's happening. Um, so that's kind of the agenda. This is me wrapping up my welcome and handing over to Sachi ASAP. And then we'll hear from Amandeep from EcoSikh UK, Sister Maureen from the Brahma Kumaris, and Natasha Chawla, who's from Hindu Climate Action and also a researcher at the University of Oxford. Then we'll have a Q&A, and there'll be some closing reflections from Sachi and Giles. The final thing I just wanted to say was, what's special about tonight is I'm going to hand you over to our host, Dr. Sachi Patel, who is the multi-faith coordinator and lead chaplain at SOAS University of London. He's also the Hindu chaplain at King's College London. He has a PhD in theology from the University of Oxford, and his research focused on the interplay of politics and religion in 18th century India. And Sachi spent 10 years living as a Hindu monk, both in the UK and India, and was the Hindu chaplain at the 2012 London Olympics. But most importantly, Dr. Sachi Patel is a new trustee here at Faith for the Climate, and this is his debut event as a Faith for the Climate trustee, and we are very, very pleased about this. So without further ado, this is the last you'll hear from me. You're going to hear from Sachi next. And I forgot to say our greeting before, our interfaith greeting, which is Shanti, Sat Shri Akal, Salam, Shalom, peace. I hope you enjoy yourselves. Sachi, over to you.
Thank you so much, Shannon, for your very generous introduction. And I must say, being a trustee of Faith for the Climate surpasses any accolades I have acquired. Yeah, and thank you. It's a pleasure to be with all of you today. And thank you for inviting me to speak and host today's Interfaith Diwali seminar. We have some very accomplished speakers that are going to share their perspectives on Diwali and environmental justice, which I'm looking forward to. But before I do so, I'm going to offer some reflections on the significance of Diwali. I'll present from a Hindu perspective. But Diwali has deep significance for Dharmic traditions, for Hindus, Jains, and Sikhs, each for different reasons. We had hoped to have a Jain representative with us, but unfortunately they couldn't join, which we hope to address in the future. Diwali, the festival of lights, invites us not only in celebration, but also reflection. Reflection on what light and darkness mean in our lives and in the world around us. When we think of Diwali, we picture rows of lamps lighting homes, fireworks, maybe too many fireworks, especially considering the theme of today's interfaith seminar, and family and friends gathering to share joy and food. Yet behind the festivities lies a timeless story from the Ramayana, an ancient history of India, a story of exile and return, struggle and reconciliation, and above all, of hope. It marks the day Lord Ram returned to Ayodhya after 14 years in exile, welcomed by lamps lit across the city. And the story endures because it not only speaks of the triumph of good over evil, but also of victory, the victory of love over hatred, compassion over envy, wisdom over ignorance. And I'm sure in the Diwali messages that you've been seeing going out, that's often as some of the expressions that are provided. But what I think Diwali really focuses on is the need for inner transformation by such statements. The battle between light and darkness is not just cosmic or historical, it's deeply personal. As well as being a history of the Itihasta, within every heart resides a Ram, the voice of truth and compassion, and a Ravana, the impulses of pride and greed. Diwali calls upon us to let our higher nature prevail. And in this sense, our inner ecology, the state of our mind, shapes how we treat the environment around us. And I think this is really an important part of what Hindu scriptures have to share on this subject. Recently, I was writing an academic article, and one of the authors that I was reading, he attributed to Plato this statement that the world outside reflects the values prevailing within the human mind. And so environmental renewal begins with a renewal of consciousness. In the Hindu tradition, Ram is honored as Maryada Purushottam. In the Hindu tradition, there's many different avatars, and they exhibit various features of divinity. But this expression, Maryada Purushottam, conveys the idea that Ram is the embodiment of dignity and moral excellence. He is someone to be followed, or an ideal to aspire for. It's described that he's the dutiful son. His father, Dasharatha, under petition from one of his wives, requests him to leave the kingdom, and he's exiled. And he does so as a dutiful son. He's a faithful husband. He's known as Eka Patni Rat, which means he will only take one wife. So there's an episode where Suparnaka, the sister of Ravana, wants to have him as her husband, but he declines. He's also known as a just king. But perhaps one feature that's not so often spoken about in relation to Ram is that he's also considered the guardian of the natural world. And this is exhibited in numerous ways in the Ramayana. During his exile in the forest of Dandakaranya, he's petitioned by many sages to protect the forest and to protect the sages themselves. The forests were considered the homes of the sages. And so he subsequently defeats numerous Rakshasas in the process. Also, the forest essentially becomes a source of refuge and shelter for Lord Ram and Sita during their time of exile. Also, when Ram attempts to regain his wife Sita, he has to cross an ocean, and he has to go to Lanka, the kingdom of Ravana, to attain his wife. And so he requests the sea god Varuna to assist him. And so Varuna, he reveals how to build a bridge to cross to Lanka. So nature itself joins the struggle for justice. His army, who accompany him to rescue Sita, are not expert warriors and soldiers as such. They're described as vanaras. They're forest dwellers, animals. They become his allies. When his younger brother, Lakshman, is on the verge of death, and he lay wounded, it's the mountains of the Himalayas that provide a life-giving, it's described as Sanjeevani herb to restore him. So in this way, the Ramayana reminds us that creation participates in divine action. God does not act in isolation, but works with nature to establish Dharma. Another point is that within Hindu theology, and I think other speakers may touch on this, is that it sees the world as inseparable from God. God is both transcendent, but he's also eminent. The Rig Veda, you find the famous Purusha Sukta verse, which describes the universe as the divine being's own body. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna reveals his cosmic form, the Virat Rup, in which all creation is seen as one vast unity. The Bhagavad Purana poetically describes the trees as his hairs, the mountains as his bones, and the rivers as his veins and arteries. To harm nature, then, is to harm divinity itself. In Hindu thought, rivers, mountains, and trees are personalities. Recently, and some may have visited the British Museum. There's an Indian religions exhibition, and it gives you a glimpse into ancient India, and it's got exhibits from the Sikh culture, Jain culture, Buddhist culture, and Hindu culture. And there you see how rural India lived. Rivers were goddesses, trees are named and protected, forests and fields are inhabited by guardian spirits. And even there's modern environmental examples that echo this ancient wisdom. I discovered recently that in New Zealand, there's a river that has been granted legal personhood. So just as humans have rights, that river has rights, and that's as recent as 2017. So these ideas all affirm that nature is not an object, but a living subject worthy of respect. So on a final note, Diwali then is not only a festival of light, but a call to conscience. It reminds us that lighting the world begins by lighting the heart. And as we light our lamps this Diwali, may we also rekindle the flame of environmental awareness, justice, and compassion for all beings. So now I'll hand over to our next speaker. Amandeep Kaur Mann is the co-founder of EcoSikh UK, an organization with a unified interfaith response to help combat climate change, global warming, and biodiversity loss. After studying international business, Amandeep Sikh's faith and affection for nature's wonder led her to a career in environmental management. She is utilizing her corporate experience in creating policies, strategies, and behavior change campaigns to support and initiate climate-based community projects. She also represents the organization as commissioner on the Yorkshire and Humber Climate Commission, which is the largest regional body of its kind in the UK, and is co-chair of the Communities and Engagement Panel and Leadership Team. So thank you, Amandeep, and look forward to hearing more about those initiatives too.
Thank you so much, Sachi. That was all so interesting. And even though I've got Hindu friends, I've grown up in the South Asian culture, there's always something new to learn. And this is the beauty of these kind of events that I thank Faith for the Climate so much for, just bringing people together. And even though I thought I was quite knowledgeable, so much to learn. And from a Sikh perspective, yes, Diwali's always been a really special occasion. With the Guru Har Gobind Ji, the sixth Sikh Guru, being wrongfully imprisoned and then being released, it was on Diwali that he was released in 1619. And so for that reason, we celebrate in memory of Guru Har Gobind Ji's release, but also his selflessness. When he was released, it was on the condition that other innocent people would also be released. And a deal was made with the emperor at the time. And he said, as many people that can hold on to your coattails, they will be released. And of course, he had a special coat made with lots of coattails, just the right number of coattails for everyone to hold on to. And it's that message of unity, of protecting the innocent and the vulnerable. And that can very easily be translated into today's climate change dilemma and problem, and all these people that are suffering who have not caused it. We need to look at that, at least be aware of it, which I'm sad to say that some pockets of the UK population, it's not on their kind of social calendars to log into events like today, because they feel like the topic of environmental management or protection is maybe removed from their responsibilities. So it's using festivals like this, like Diwali, to remind people exactly what you said about the deeper meaning. It's more than just lighting a diva. And then simplicity comes into it. You know, we're in this culture of more is not enough. You know, we need more and more and more. But what about going back to basics? And this is something we promote at EcoSikh UK. We say when we celebrate, first of all, fireworks are just not in line with so many of the peaceful values that we're trying to promote with Diwali and Bandhi Chhor Divas. But also, one diva alone can mean so much, you know, and if you put that thought and prayer into it, just watching a flame in itself is meditative. And I've put a little word cloud at the end, which I'll show you, which is just words that I thought of that reminded me of Diwali. So the word guru is kind of broken up into two parts. Gu is darkness, the ru is the light. And so when we're coming out of that darkness into the light, it's about clarity, it's about connectivity, and it's about all the kind of things that we might in autumn months just need, you know, the comfort, the change in the season, but experiencing that shift in perception is the heightened state of consciousness we all want to achieve. We want to change the way we think for the better. So it's I'll just show you some slides that I prepared just to put things into a little bit of a picture. Um, Share this. Okay. Just to show you what Diwali might look like in Amritsar, in Punjab, where the Golden Temple is. We do discourage the use of fireworks, and a diva or a candle lighting would be much better. I'm moving to the next screen. That's where technical issues happen. Just 1 second. Let's try this. So aside from Amritsar, what's going on there, we've also got the picture that many people will use to commemorate the Sikh celebration of Bandhi Chhor Divas. That's Guru Har Gobind Ji. Just a quick one to say that Environment Agency, with their Sikh fellowship, approached us, and they approached lots of other communities of faith as well, to say, how can we make festivals more sustainable? How can we reduce plastic? Some of it was reducing food waste, and some of it was around, decorations and fireworks. Another thing we're really proud of is the Canal River Trust partnership that we've got, to say there are other ways of alternatives to fireworks, let's say. And this is a bridge in Smethwick where a Gurdwara is very, very near to. And they're encouraging people from the Gurdwara to go down to this bridge and look at this beautiful light show. And with all the technology and innovation now coming up, there should be more light shows rather than firework displays. As this little boy is showing, spread light, not smoke. And this was the word cloud. And I'd be really interested, actually, if you could put in the chat at some point later, if there's anything from here that particularly, surprised you or is appealing to you. So I've put things like renewal. I've put shining. We have to be shining bright in our behaviors, in what kind of examples we want to set. And it's that warrior mentality of, as a human race, we can come together, we can innovate, and we can be creative, just like we always have been for thousands of years, to make solutions. And yeah, I'll end there. But thank you very much for giving me some space to speak about Sikh faith.
Thank you so much, Amandeep, for a very thoughtful and informative presentation. I know we have a very limited time to speak, so we'll attempting to pack a lot, but that was very well done. Thank you so much. And I think at the end, when there's questions, there may be more opportunity to speak. So let me now introduce our next speaker. We have Sister Maureen Goodman, who has a deep interest in the spiritual and ethical dimensions of climate change and climate justice. Maureen is part of the Brahma Kumaris. She's an Interfaith Liaison Committee, which reports directly to the UN framework on climate change. She was the head of the Brahma Kumaris delegation at COP27 in 2022. She also headed the Brahma Kumari delegations to COP15 and COP16 for biodiversity, and represents the Brahma Kumaris in the International Coalition of Faiths for Biodiversity. Maureen has a long-term involvement in interreligious dialogue and represents the Brahma Kumaris on the board of World Religious Leaders of the Elijah Interfaith Institute. So over to you, Sister Maureen. And I love her background as well.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. And very honored to be here. And I can see that what we're all going to say and are saying is very much going to we're going to complement each other, because we're moving in the same direction. And of course, Diwali is symbolizes the coming of light into the world. And when we celebrate Diwali in the Brahma Kumaris, of course, we have the celebrations and the food and everything, but we do also celebrate the spiritual significance, as many of you do. And so the coming of light into the world and the banishing of evil. And yet when we look at the world at the moment, we may say, where is that happening? And I think this is the first thing. In the midst of darkness, in the midst of suffering, can we look for those new shoots of growth where spirituality is emerging, where people are returning more to the heart of their faiths and realizing that there has to be another way to live and to exist. And I think this is at the heart of climate justice, that we are renewing ourselves, renewing our relationship with the earth, and renewing our consciousness, as has been mentioned. Because when we think about exile and return, that is the shift of consciousness. And exile, yes, of course, Rama exiled for the 14 years and all that you've described as very significant. But also in the spiritual terms, we have been exiled from ourselves. We've been exiled from our true spiritual nature and our original nature of peace, of love, of purity, of happiness. And that exile has led us into a much more materialistic way of thinking and living and being. And so the return is returning to who we are. Also, we have exiled ourselves very much from Mother Nature, nature that sustains us with her abundance, because we have lost our, excuse me, our natural relationship with the earth. So the renewal of a relationship of respect, of care, and of value of the sacredness of life and of all living beings. This is the return we need to make. And of course, we all give gifts at Diwali. And yes, we may give spiritual gifts, but the spiritual gifts, physical gifts, but the spiritual gifts of love and light and goodness, this is equally, if not more, important. Diwali comes at the end of the harvest, and so it's a time for us to give thanks and not to take anything for granted. And I feel that's very, very important. And just a few words about, how can we be more eco-friendly at Diwali? And I think many things have been mentioned. But one thing is, even in our prasad, can that be made from ingredients that have not caused cruelty to nature or to living creatures? If we have to serve, our Diwali plates, can things be biodegradable? Or are we not? And to avoid the use of plastic. There are all these many principles that we can put into practice when we are celebrating. And actually, battery diyas, they of course reduce the risk. It's a health and safety risk of having candles and lighted diyas, but also it saves on pollution. And so there are many things that we can do and we can consider when celebrating Diwali. But more than anything, as we appreciate what the earth gives us, what Mother Nature gives us, then that shift in consciousness, that's restoration of our true relationship with the earth, is what is going to bring the true kingdom where life is flourishing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sister Maureen, for such an eloquent speech. Thank you. And now over to our final speaker, Natasha Chawla, who's currently at Oxford University doing research on Indian environmental thought. Her PhD focuses on Rabindranath Tagore's eco-philosophy. She also facilitates classes with the Chinmoya Mission UK and serves on the Continuing Development Board of the Oxford Centre for Hindu Studies. She's the founder of Soham Studios, and she teaches Hindu philosophy, or where she teaches Hindu philosophy on teacher training programs and through public talks and panels, linking its many branches with sustainable living and informing interfaith conversations on religion, philosophy, and the environment. To you, Natasha.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me here today. It's such a lovely event to be having, especially a week before Diwali. So today I really wanted to bring in the idea of all of the stories that we hear around Diwali. And Hinduism especially, it's rich with stories, with mythology, but can we use those stories and go a little bit deeper into their inner significance and how that relates to the climate. So I'm going to try and share screen here, if it works, and just take you through, firstly, very quickly take you through three stories that are quite well known in response to Diwali, and then look at the inner symbolism. Okay, let's see if this works. Can you see that? Yeah, okay, great. So the first story everyone has talked about today, but when Rama returns from being in exile for 14 years in the forest, and he returns home from Ayodhya. So why did he go to the forest? He went because he was exiled by his stepmother. But the point is, the last 1 year of his exile, his wife got kidnapped by Ravan, this great, great demon who had 10 heads. He kidnapped his wife. And the last 1 year was Rama spent trying to get Sita back, trying to get his wife back. And he defeated the 10-headed Ravan. But Ravan was like the demon of the universe. He was very hard to defeat. And finally, after this 1 year, Rama brings Sita back. And as they come back home to Ayodhya, all of the people who have missed Ram so much, they didn't want him to leave in the first place. They lit lamps for his return as the return of light back to the darkness that they were in. And also it was the goodness overcoming evil, the evil forces of Ravan. So Rama is returning on the day of Diwali. So we all light lamps for knowledge returning to the darkness. So that's story one. And we'll go into the inner symbolism of that in a minute. Then another story, Lord Krishna vanquishes a demon called Narakasura. Now, Narakasura was born of the earth. So he was born very, very good, actually. But then what happened was he came into very, very bad company and got a little bit power hungry. So he was taking all of the resources from everywhere he could find all over the earth. He was stealing women. There's 16,000 women he took to his harem, and all sorts of things were going on. And Krishna's wife heard about this and got very upset. So she said to Krishna, "Come, we need to sort this out." So Krishna goes and defeats this Narakasura. He's, again, big battle, lots of fighting. These are big, powerful demons. They're not easy to defeat. So it takes a lot of strength and a lot of courage and a lot of good force to defeat them. So this was the story of Narakasura. He waged war against the whole of the earth and the heavens, and Krishna comes there and he defeats him. And then the last story is Lakshmi. We've all heard of goddess Lakshmi, and she is the goddess of wealth. The story of how Lakshmi emerges is the story of the Milky Ocean. So there's the demons and the asura and the devatas, so the bad and the good, and they come together because both of them want the nectar that's at the bottom of the ocean. This nectar is the nectar of immortality, the nectar of great health, the nectar of all the good things you'd want in the world. And so everyone wanted it. So they come together and they start churning the ocean. And at the bottom of the ocean is this nectar. So they churn, and all this not very nice stuff comes out first. Then Lakshmi comes, and Lakshmi is the symbolism of wealth, all the good qualities, prosperity, beauty, charm, love, compassion, all of those good qualities. And then finally they get to the bottom and they get the Amrita. Okay, so this is the story of how Lakshmi emerged from the world. But all of them have a deeper significance. So for the Rama story, Ravana represents Ravana is the 10-headed demon. He represents the forces of exploitation and imbalance. Today, Ravana is our extractive relationship with nature. But in Hinduism, the concept of Dharma is considered to be a universal organizing principle that governs all reality. So when Rama comes back brings Sita back into Ayodhya, Dharma is restored. And so this is what we want to, when we look at the stories, can we see how we can restore that balance, restore that Dharma back? The Narakasura story represents humanity turning against its own Mother Earth. So he was born of the earth, but he turned against the earth and he started hoarding resources. He took the 16,000 women. He was stealing nature's treasure. You can just imagine how we could like superimpose this on today's environment. And like Nareksura, we're Earth's children who've become intoxicated with power over nature. So the defeat of him reminds us that Earth herself will ultimately correct our excess, but we need to awaken our own consciousness, which is Krishna, to restore balance before it's too late. And then the last story, the deeper meaning for climate. Lakshmi emerges from the ocean, our oceans that now face acidification and plastic pollution, but she represents the wealth that flows and circulates, not wealth that's hoarded. Her insistence on cleanliness reminds us that true prosperity can't exist in a polluted world. When we poison our waters and dirty our earth, we drive Lakshmi away. The lamps we light every Diwali must guide us toward clean energy and sustainable abundance that flows to all beings, not just a few, not extractive wealth that depletes our cosmic ocean. And then just to bring out those things a little bit more, light over darkness. This actually means our own consciousness over our own ignorance. So wherever there's Rama returning to illuminate Ayodhya, whether it's Krishna defeating the darkness of Nareksura's greed or Lakshmi bringing the light of prosperity from the cosmic depths, the outer lamp represents our inner awakening. So in practical terms, it might mean choosing renewable energy over fossil fuels, choosing the most compassionate consumption and diet possible, creating community rather than individualism. But on a deeper level, it's about illuminating our own consciousness to see through the darkness of denial, of greed, of apathy, of selfishness, everything that seems to be overtaking our world at the moment. Then good over evil. It's not fighting external enemies, but conquering our internal demons of greed and overconsumption. Ravan's 10 heads are our endless desires. Nareksura is humanity drunk on power over nature. The cosmic churning shows how our industrial progress releases both poison, as it did in the beginning, and potential nectar in things like the green solutions or planting of trees or all of the great things we could be doing. And I think the climate truth hidden behind these kind of insights, each of the stories brings about order over a kind of chaos. It returns us to cosmic balance. Rama reestablishes righteous rule. Krishna liberates the imprisoned forces. Lakshmi emerges when opposing forces work together, when all the forces of the world work together. So it's about returning to harmony within natural law. And when we reconsider these stories, they're more than just myths about gods defeating demons out there. They're about the eternal struggle within us between our own higher nature, the values that we want to live out, our aspirations, and our lower nature, our greed, our selfishness. So the stories symbolize in a very theatrical way our living reality now. We are Nareksura, Earth's children turned against our own Mother Earth. We are churning the oceans, releasing the poison of warming. We are in exile from our true nature, needing to return home to ecological balance. And Diwali calls us to light the lamp of awareness, to see that we contain both Ram and Ravan, Krishna and Nareksura, the poison and the nectar. The choice of which we manifest is ours. So I'll end there. There's a lot more to say, but I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natasha. Oh, there's so many wonderful presentations today, and personally, I'm going to watch the recording again when I get time. But now it's an opportunity for those that have come to the seminar, if there's any questions, and we'll end with a short reflection from Giles after that. So does anyone have any questions for any of the speakers? I can't see if there's any in the chat right now. I don't know, Shannon, if you can.
Yeah, you can, as Rosha said in the chat, you can use the raise hand function if you have a question as well, if you haven't put it in the chat. Go on, Marilyn.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be in this meeting. I was so interested to be here today because I saw the topic of Diwali. And I think my question is, as mentioned in the presentations, very briefly, about the thing about fireworks and pollution and about making Diwali more sustainable. Like, it's quite a battle here, especially in South Africa, because fireworks is very big and a lot of animals get hurt and stuff like that. And it causes a lot of pollution. And so it's almost like the Hindus get a very bad name here because it's like they just classify it as, oh, they don't care about the environment, they hurt animals, and it's a very general classification. So what would you advise, or how would you say that we can move beyond this? Because Diwali has to an extent become about materialism. It's about the food, the fireworks, and everything. I like the fact in the presentations you were talking about connecting to Diwali again into our spirituality and finding the deeper essence in it. So that's my question. I mean, there has been some organizations in South Africa that's been trying to do Diwali festivals different and have it more green and stuff, but it hasn't taken off very much. So yeah, that's just my question. Thank you so much.
Would one of the speakers like to respond to that? Amandeep, please.
Can I just mention on that one, because it's something very close to my heart. I think a lot of awareness isn't there about actually when these fireworks explode, it's litter as a first point of call. The microplastics problem at the moment is so big, but these fireworks, when they explode, they do break into small pieces, so they are litter. And animals and the closeness of Indian people in the rural villages with animals, you'd think that would then transfer. But I think sometimes when people move out to other countries and live in cities, that connection with the earth goes. But then there's also that drive to get more people together, and you attract people by doing entertainment and interesting things. And I've even heard things like, well, to get the youth involved, we have to do things like this. So we as organizations have to challenge that, support the organizations that are trying to make change by giving evidence and more information. I think knowledge is the way forward. That's just my opinion.
Would any of the other speakers like to respond to that question too?
Yeah, there was a case in Delhi, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where there was an awareness campaign for children, and the children were made to understand the risks and the dangers and the things of fireworks. And the children got really upset about it, about how the animals were being affected by it, there was so much pollution. And the children were really, really encouraging their parents not to buy fireworks. And for 2 or 3 years, it didn't last very long, but for 2 or 3 years, the pollution in Delhi became really, really less just because the children put pressure on their own parents. And that came from them being educated about it. So there was this whole thing about kid power in Delhi, and it comes down to education and really understanding what these things are doing, because people do care and they won't do these things if they know the dangers and the things that are happening. So it's about education and reinforcing that year after year after year, because people forget.
And then we also have to listen to our children as well. That's another thing, isn't it? Making sure that these youth have a voice and they feel like it's not just the elders making the decisions, especially in our places of worship.
Just to say, I agree totally. It's about raising awareness, but also making other things so enjoyable that people don't miss the fireworks as well.
Well, thank you for your responses to those questions. We probably have time for one more question, I think, and I'm going to butcher your name, so apologies. Ursula, are you able to?
That's fine, yes.
Right.
Ursula. Hi, I wanted to add about children. I have a very, very positive experience there as well. I used to lead program on plastic pollution on island of Iona. And last time I did it, we discovered with children going to 5 beaches that there was no plastic left. So just having that rising awareness of things and listening to children's voices, it really makes a difference. So thank you so much for what you are doing, all of you.
Thank you so much. Do we have time for one more question, Shannon, or should we hand over to Giles?
I think there is a question in the chat box. I don't quite understand it, but it's something about what happens to the availability of food in the UK at the end of the drama with a capital D. And I think that might be a reference to, yeah, the environmental crisis. So I don't know if any of the speakers have any ideas about the connection between food and environmental justice and Diwali as well.
I think maybe I could just say that if I'm understanding, resources are getting more and more scarce, obviously because of climate change. And maybe there's a certain fear that people have. Here in the UK, we're still very lucky with everything that we have available, but that's not the same in other parts of the world. And so maybe we really do need to prepare for a simpler lifestyle. And so if there is a lack of anything, a simpler lifestyle will help us to be able to move through that and still, be able to have enough nourishment. I mean, I can think that could be what's at the root of the question, but so simplicity. And then I have to say in the middle of that, which I'm sure many will agree, a vegetarian lifestyle, but also a vegan lifestyle that has a huge impact on the environment. And that is a way of living in a non-violent way. So I think that would be my response to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Maureen. So I think we should begin to close this seminar, but thank you so much for your insights as well as theological insights from various Dharmic faiths. We also had the opportunity to hear about practical things that we can do to really support and help in regards to environmental justice. So these are kind of ideas that we can all take away, think about more, become part of Faith for the Climate and support the great work they're doing. And on that note, I'll hand over now for some final words from Canon Giles Goddard, who's also the chair and co-founder, along with Shannon, for Faith for the Climate. So over to you, Giles.
Thank you so much, Sachi. Thank you for your sharing, and thank you to everyone who's contributed. As Shannon said at the beginning, this is a first for Faith for the Climate to have a webinar focused on the Dharmic religions, and I'm really delighted that we've been able to do it and have such a great team of speakers. So huge thanks. And as Sachi said, I think the recording will be available afterwards. So if, like him and like me, you want to watch it again, we'll be sending the link round as soon as it's all been finalised. And I've been reflecting as I've been listening on the importance of light, not just in the Hindu and the Jain and the Sikh traditions, but so much in all of all the religious traditions, really, and also the importance of light, full stop, which is why I'm so drawn to Diwali as a festival, because light is a byproduct actually of the nuclear reactions which happen in all the stars. So light is the byproduct of the thing which gives us our existence, and light and electricity are kind of deeply, deeply connected, and it's electricity which is buzzing around us, which enables us to be able to speak and to listen and to talk and to think and to make things and to do things. And light is what enables us to see each other. So it's right at the heart. I mean, without light, we wouldn't be here, basically. So it's great to celebrate it. And, within the very first verse of the opening book of the Bible, God creates the heavens and the earth, and the very first thing that God does within the Jewish and the Christian traditions is to create light. God says, "Let there be light," and there was light. And of course, within Christianity, we have the opening of the Gospel of John, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. And within Judaism, you have Hanukkah, the festival of lights in Hanukkah. And within Islam, Muhammad the Prophet is described as light, and Allah is described in the Quran as the light of the heavens and the earth. So it's such a way of celebrating light, is a way of bringing us all together and enabling us to kind of share and celebrate our common humanity. And I just want to finish with a translation, and you'll forgive me, those of you who know this mantra much, much better than I do, but the Gayatri mantra is right at the heart of much Hindu practice, and it's been translated in many different ways. It's very, very old. I think it dates from 800 or 1000 BCE, and it's a short mantra which is repeated often within worship, I think, and I apologize if I'm getting this wrong, but there's a translation of it which I love by the American poet Ravi Shankar, and I'm just going to share that translation of this great mantra, the Gayatri mantra, because it seems to me to kind of sum up really much of what we've been talking about. The mantra is addressed to one of the deities. It says, O manifest and unmanifest wave and ray of breath, red lotus of insight, transfix us from eye to navel, to throat, under a canopy of stars, spring from soil in an unbroken arc of light, that we might immerse ourselves until lit from within, like the sun itself. And so my prayer is that we may all be able to immerse ourselves in the divine light so that we can be lit from within, like the sun itself, and bring about the transformations for which we're all hoping and praying and working. And I think on that note, it falls to me to draw the webinar to a close, doesn't it? And to thank you all very much indeed for being with us. We will be following up, as I said, with the recording, and don't miss our interviews for Black History Month and all the other things which have happened. If you haven't already signed up for our newsletter, please do go to our website and do so. And thank you. Keep hoping, keep transforming, keep praying, and keep being lights in the world. Amen.